Good evening, and thank you for tuning in to WCEG I am your host, Vincent Cheeks, and you are listening to Conversations in Education. Um, you can listen to us live on our website, WCEG You just click the live stream tab at the top, um, or you can catch us on Instagram at WCEG underscore talk underscore radio, and on, no, that was Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG Network. So Twitter is at WCEG underscore talk underscore radio, and Instagram is at WCEG Network. Last but not least, the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. Okay, and with that, we're going to jump right into our very special guest. She is Representative Valencia Stovall. She is a native of Southeast Atlanta, a mother of two, who has a strong, diverse background in finance, entrepreneurship, and public policy, currently residing in Forest Park. In 2012, she was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives and has been a bipartisan leader for 8 years, working with both liberals and conservatives to develop a $45 million grant for local governments, authored and passed legislation to protect special needs students, authored legislation to reform Georgia's education funding formula, and co-sponsored over a dozen bills to improve the lives of Georgians that have been signed into law. She was recognized by the National Council of State Legislators as a woman in politics making a difference, and that she does. And she is a National Council of State Governments Henry Toll Fellow. She is currently a U.S. Senate candidate for the November 3rd, 2020 special election to represent Georgia as one of two senators. And I do believe she is running as an independent. Is that correct, Ms. Stovall?
That's correct.
All right, that is wonderful. And to top it all off, she is a wonderful family member here at WCEG Talk Radio. What is the name of your show, Ms. Stovall?
Issues and Answers.
Issues and Answers. And when can my listeners catch you on Issues and Answers?
It will more than likely be after the campaign. I'll resume back again.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got special things to take care of, right? You got big things planned. And I don't know if you noticed when I sent you the questions, I had it labeled as questions for Senator Stovall.
Oh, yes.
We are already claiming that you won that, okay?
Yes.
And I do thank you for being here. Thank you for taking out your time out of your busy schedule to come in and talk to me at Conversations in Education and our listeners. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started because I know you have a very busy schedule. So my first question I want to ask you is, how exactly did you get involved in politics? Because as I read in your bio, you started out as an entrepreneur. You had your own t-shirt making business, correct?
Yes, customized printing. It was a family business that we had started by my mother and father over 30 years ago. And my father, being very active in the community, was the one that actually got myself and my two sisters involved in politics. Instrumental in electing several people, even statewide and some locally, to their elected positions, to include Mayor Maynard Jackson, Honorable Mayor Jackson, who was the first African-American to serve as a mayor of a southern city. His two terms in office, he helped. Also, Shirley Franklin, who was mayor, that served 2 terms in office. He helped her when she first got started as well, and many other helped. Zell Miller when he ran for lieutenant governor. So it's been a while, and then we kind of come to current many city council members, county commissioners, state representatives, and senators, some of whom I served with right now at the state capitol, who my daddy had helped previously in their election when they first got started.
Okay, and so what was your father's position? What exactly did he do that he was able to help all of these people with their campaigns?
Just a community advocate, someone that worked in the community. He had worked as a coach at several of the recreation centers in in the community, but he was a strong community advocate, was in charge of several community organizations. And we grew up in Southeast Atlanta over near the federal prison. So he was very active in that. And because of him being active and working with several other community programs, he became very well known in the community. And actually he has a bridge that's named after him on University Avenue exit 7585. If you're going north or south, you'll see a bright sign that says Stovall Bridge.
Oh, yes, I have seen that. I did not realize that that was your father.
Yes.
Okay, well, congratulations. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Well, it's good to know that you have some political blood running in your veins. My next question would be, why did you decide to run for the U.S. Senate?
Very good question. Currently, as a state representative, I've been elected, like you said, for 8 years now. And I've seen and witnessed at the state capitol that many issues that we are facing, we're looking for solutions, but we're only putting band-aids on, which are temporary solutions, and solutions have to come from Washington, D.C. And that's really have been made prominent and well known now during COVID-19 as how dependent we really are on the federal government and those that are in leadership positions to making sure that resources and everything that's needed comes down efficiently to the states and also to the local government. And so I wanted to be able to take my 30 years of business experience, community advocacy, and my 8 years of legislative experience working bipartisan with both Republicans and Democrats to be able to take it to Washington, D.C. and be a champion for all of Georgia. Our issues are not Democratic issues. They're not Republican issues. They are people issues. And one example is education. People issues. They are not partisan issues. And I've been really effective being able to work at the state capitol, being able to just look at what the issues are and being a champion. And that's why one of the reasons I decided to run as an independent. I did not want to be beholden to a particular party when it comes down to voting and my stance on issues. Because like I said, you can't depend on what the leadership is because you don't know what the leadership is going to tell you to do. And it might not line up to what your constituents are saying that you need to vote for. And so I've seen that and witnessed that even as a state representative at the state capitol.
Okay. And so you said you didn't run, you ran as an independent because you didn't want to be beholden to one particular party or the other, being Democrat or Republican. So is there a label for the party or the independent party that you're running under?
No, it's no label. No one's in charge. We're able to think independently. And currently there are 2 independent senators they're serving in Washington, D.C. now. Bernie Sanders, who ran on the Democratic ticket for president, and the other one is Senator King. Both of them, of course, are from northern states. And I would be the first Black woman when elected to serve as a U.S. Senator from Georgia. We never had a Black woman to serve. And also be the first independent to be able to serve from any southern state. Independent has never been elected to U.S. Senate.
Okay. Wow. That sounds like a lot of pressure. But I know, like you said, you have 30 years of experience, business and political. So I'm pretty sure you are used to that kind of pressure. But running as an independent, does that give you any type of advantage or disadvantage when it comes to what most people know as typically a 2-party system, Democrat or Republican?
It's an advantage. Of course, I think there's a disadvantage, but I look at the positive side on everything. Even when I decided to run, I had many of my colleagues to say, Valencia, why are you running? You in a leadership position at the state capitol, 1 or 2 Democrats to hold a leadership position as vice chair of a subcommittee on education and been appointed to appropriations early on in my career as a state legislator. So it wasn't a push or a need for me that I had to leave, but sometimes you can stay in a place too long. And with the experience that I have and things that I see on the bigger picture that's needed for Georgia, I decided to put myself into this race after prayer, of course, and consultation with the family decided
Okay.
to go for this higher position so that I could be able to make a bigger change. I've done a lot as a state representative in my district with bringing that $45 million to Clayton County as for so that our local taxpayers' taxes would not be go up. And this is something that had to do with the airport, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, and
Okay.
the administration said that we could not collect taxes unless we could spend it at the airport, which we can't spend it because we don't own the airport. 80% of the land sits in Clayton County, which is why we're the authorizing taxing authority, but we can't spend the money there. And so that's what became the dilemma. And so I was able to use my bipartisanship work that I've done over the years to sit with Governor Deal, and we were able to negotiate the $45 million as a stopgap for Clayton County, which is very major, especially Clayton County being a Democratic county. So when you talk about being as an independent, being able to negotiate on both sides is going to be very, very important going up to Washington, D.C. Yes, we are a party system, a two-party system, but it's time to break up that two-party system. You've seen the issues, like I said, they are not partisan issues, they are people issues. And so you want someone that's going to be free to be able to speak on those issues that are related directly to the people without wondering if my party is going to ostracize me or going to say I'm undercover this, which it has happened at the state capitol several times. Yes. So I'm not talking from what someone told me. I'm talking from personal experience about what happens with partisanship in the state capitol.
Okay. So you're saying someone has accused you of being a mole or some sort?
Well, they've accused me of being an undercover Republican.
Okay.
I'm not a true Democrat. So all kind of things and labels of my colleagues that are elected just like I am. And what I simply told them is that I'm going to stand up for what I believe is right for the people that sent me to the state capitol to serve them. So that is the other reason, like I said, it's why I decided to go independent. Because when going to Washington, D.C., you're going to be dealing with bigger issues that affect a larger amount of people than the 50,000 that I represent currently now. And so being able to think independently, and not saying I'm not able to work with both parties, because I am, but I had the freedom to be able to work with both parties without one saying that I'm something else that I am not being accused, but being able to find that common ground, which is what I've been able to do for the past 8 years at the state capitol, is finding a common ground with on both sides. So sometimes I vote with Republicans, and to tell you the truth, what many people don't know, if they go and check the voting record during the regular session, you'll see that majority of the times the Democrats and Republicans vote together on bills. It's just when they get to certain bills that there's a disagreement with. So when people say, oh, she's always voting with Republicans, you can pull the record. Most everybody else is always voting with the Republicans, and sometimes Republicans vote with the Democrats. That's just how it's just on certain bills and issues. And for me, it was education that was the departer when it comes down to the Democratic views on education and what my views are on education.
Right. So how does that make you feel as a representative who is a representative for the people, like you said, and you are working on issues with both sides of the aisle, trying to get things resolved for the people, and you're being labeled and called out of your name for what you feel is doing right in standing up for the people? How does that make you feel?
Well, it was disheartening because because you're thinking, okay, I'm with the party, and even though I might not agree with them 100%, it still should not be justification to say you're not a true Democrat. When majority of the times I do vote Democrat, but there are certain issues that I just do not agree on. And when I took the oath to service, and when I ran for state representative, took the oath, that oath said that I was to service the constituents, which are a mixture of everybody in my district. And because my district, when it came to education, they were a part of the low performing school districts across the state. So I had to take a stand on education where some of my colleagues might not be in areas that are in situations like Clayton County and some of the other areas. So my stance on education was always dealing with school choice. And I
Okay.
that every parent should have the option and the right to decide where and how they want their child to be educated in the system. And they may choose traditional public, and then that child may mature, and then they decide, well, I want to try private school, or they say I might want to try a charter school, or I might want to homeschool. So all of that should be options that are given to the parents, and it shouldn't be barriers that are placed before parents just because of those choices that they choose.
Okay. And so I was going to go another way with the question, but since you brought up education and school choice, I want to ask this question. Do you think public education is the best route? Or what do you think is the best route? If it's not public education, is it charter schools? Is it home schooling?
Well, let me clear up the record. Charter schools are public schools.
Okay.
No tuition charge for them, and that's what justifies them as being a public school. I think that every school setting is the best. Whatever it is going to take for that child to get the foundation that he or she needs, that's what we need to look at is when we talk about reforming our education system.
Okay.
You're looking at now with distance learning and what has happened. Many of our traditional schools had not been taking advantage of virtual learning, which they should have been doing already. And those online charter schools that were already doing virtual learning, they did not miss a beat. Of course, you know, COVID affected everyone.
Right.
But now to the instruction of the learning, they continued on. Where our traditional schools have struggled and continue to struggle, it's a lot of stress on the educators, on the administrators, on the teachers, and the parents, because they were thrown into something that they were not accustomed to. And so that's why I talked about whatever setting is going to be best that parent decides. And of course, parents might not know everything, but every parent wants the best for their child. And if you give them the options and you educate them on what the different options are, as that child matures, they might continue to stay in a traditional public school. I don't have a problem with that. And whatever that traditional public school needs and support, then we need to give it to that school. Also, accountability is very important for our traditional public schools as well.
Okay.
The money they receive and the taxpayer money they are spending it towards that child. We need to restructure our funding education formula so that it is directly beneficial to the child and not to a system. Like right now, what we could be doing with our online virtual learning is having each child with an educational plan. It's almost similar to an IEP with our special needs students, where you give them what goals they're supposed to be setting. That way, even with the kids doing distance learning, if they have a plan of their own, and there are some school districts, I know at one point, Henry County school district had done some portions of doing the educational plan, and they had put into place, but then new leadership came in. Of course, it kind of pushed out the way. But those students got a chance, an opportunity to take ownership of their own learning. So they were given whatever they needed to achieve, and then they were given a time frame. And then as they achieved each level, they received a mastery. Okay, you mastered, now you can move on. So this the teachers as well, because they've been doing differentiated learning, teaching, but this them even more, because the child now can say, this is where I need help at. Instead of them trying to teach to the middle, each child is now getting their own, being able to do their own research and go through the whole process. So at the end of the day, for me, Vincent, my total goal is to make sure that every child that graduates from our high school is prepared and had a foundation to be productive citizens. Every school student should graduate with a certification in some type of trade. We're kind of doing that now with our dual enrollment program, but we need to expand it. We need to make it open to every child and not just certain children that are able to go because they heard about it, while some of the other kids who really need to be able to participate many times do not find out about it.
Right. So, okay, so you said you want students to at least be able to graduate with some type of trade, correct?
Yes, certified trade.
Is that because there aren't many schools that are still teaching trade programs, is it?
They're called college and career academies that have those specific, but every school district does not have a college and career academy. Now, individual schools have some career pathways where the children can eventually get certification, but it's not for every child. So that's the key point: being able to have it available for every child that wants that goes into that area. There are some programs that have been in place, like U Science, which looks at measuring the aptitude of the kids, not the academic, but the aptitude. And so when you're looking at those type of programs, they're looking at what their child is naturally talented at. And looking at our school district, you can end up kind of restructuring some of our curricula, especially those elective, to go towards those things that the kids are interested in. Then you won't have such a huge issue about dropout, school dropout.
Okay.
Students that decide to drop out see that they don't have a place in their educational setting.
Okay.
And they feel like, where am I going? There's nothing for me. But that child is going to age out. When that child ages out at 18 or 21, they have special needs, they become a part of society. And one thing about it, when we talk about the funding formula, which are things that I'll be working on as a U.S. Senator, we're working with the state of Georgia on looking at how to redo that formula, and also on the federal level on how we are dispersing money down to our Department of Education, then down to the local school districts. When you think of an example, if someone is incarcerated or arrested, say they live in Gwinnett County and they're arrested in Cobb County.
Okay.
County does not tell Cobb County, you need to send us money for your incarcerated resident that we are housing up here.
Right.
That's a cost that is borne by all taxpayers. In our state budget, we have about $1 billion that's used on the average that goes towards the justice system for paying for all of that. So we don't have an argument about that. You haven't seen one sending an invoice to the other one. So why do we do that for education?
Right.
Which is very important for our society. We have to make sure we have educated students that have a foundation. That also determines what businesses are going to be located in what communities, what type of businesses. The businesses look at the education system and see what their future workforce is going to look like. So just imagine every student graduating with a certification, then that kind of equals out the playing field for companies that are looking in certain areas. And
right.
In the lower income areas or economically disadvantaged areas.
Right. So how did we get to a point where we are now? Because I remember when I was in high school in the 90s, we had trade classes, we had shop, we had home ec, we had other things that you could do. So how do we get to the point now where all of those, the trade schools seem to have fallen off or disappeared?
Yeah, so I think during I would say the late 80s, early 90s, there began a shift in want to push more college students to go to college, 4-year colleges. And they kind of took away from the technical college. It was like, okay, everybody needs to be white collar, professional. And now seeing what has happened so many years later, you don't have enough people in those trade areas just for basic needs that need to be taken care of around in our community and even throughout. And that they would then, looked on as negative if you were in a blue collar type of job. But now these blue collar jobs are paying more than your white collar jobs. You have college graduates that can't even get a job that end up going to a fast food or taking a lower type of job with a college degree. But someone is graduating with a trade certification, they're going right into the workforce. And that market is going to bear what that pay rate should be. So you look at apprenticeship type of programs that'll need internship type of programs. We need more programs that are going to help direct our children into careers and knowledge about careers. You think about it, if you're a student that grows up in a household and just say your parents did not have a particular trade or was not in a professional area, that's all you exposed to. You don't hear conversations about if you had a cousin that was a doctor, then eventually y'all get together at a family event, you're gonna hear them talk about something related to a doctor or a lawyer or somebody that's in welding. But if you have communities and families that are not exposed to that, then they're limited. And that's our responsibility is with the school and with being as an elected official in our community is exposing our children to those trades and those industries that are really non-traditional for the community in which they live. And then we won't have issues of having some areas with lower income earners versus others. You're kind of equaling out that playing field, but it all starts with the foundation of education. And even when you talk about our college students, their student loan debt is too high. Just think, if I'm able to graduate with a certification, I could go straight to work. If I decide to go to a 4-year college, I now am earning enough money that I can pay my own, or my student debt is going to be less. Even with dual enrollment, where the students are able to go to college and high school at the same time, they are automatically reducing their student loan debt because they're not going to be in college as long because they're some of their college courses while in high school.
Okay. And I was going to ask, since you brought up the debt that college students take on, do you think we've done trade students a disservice by trying to push them into that area? And even have we done some college students a disservice because, like you said, we go into college with little to no debt, and then we come out. I know I came out, I was $50,000 in debt, and that's gone up due to me having, in between jobs, losing jobs, getting jobs, life happening basically. And then the penalties and interest that gets accrued, I'm sure I owe way more than when I initially graduated from college in 1998. So is that pushing students towards that college is the only route to go? Is that doing a disservice to not only college students, but to the students that we're looking at less in the trade areas?
I wouldn't say it was doing too much of a disadvantage. Like I said, I think awareness and access, which is two things I talk about, is going to be very, very important. And starting in middle school and sometimes younger, excuse me, with our students, exposing them to the different types of careers that are available, then that helps cut down the amount of time of if they start college and they're not sure, at least they have a better, clearer understanding of what they're interested in. Because most of the time when students start college, they're going because I want to go to college, not with a clear goal in mind that I want to go to college for this. Or they get in 2 years and decide, I'm going to change my major. Or they third year, I'm going to change my major, which means they may have to stay in college a little bit longer because they didn't get those other courses, those core courses that they needed to be able to graduate. So now their student debt increases because they now have changed their what it is that their original career is. So as much as we can do preliminary and pre-college, the better off we're going to see moving forward with that.
Okay, excellent. Ooh, that was good. I like that. I like that. Going back to you running for U.S. Senate and running as an independent, I was going to ask you a question about the two-party system that you mentioned before. And my question is the two-party system fair to the general American public? And I know there are other systems, but I know there's the Libertarian Party, and there's another one that I can't think of right now. But for the most part, it's primarily Democrat and Republican. You're either on one side of the aisle or the other. Is that overall system unfair to the American people?
Yes, it is unfair. When you're like here in Georgia, if you want to run during a regular election, because this particular seat that I'm running for is a special election that's going to be held on November the 3rd.
Okay.
This is for the retiring seat to complete the remaining term, 2-year term of the retiring Senator Johnny Isakson. So once he retired, there was an appointment made, but the people have to still decide who they want. I was able to run as an independent on this special election because it was a special election. There was no primary needed or done because of this special election. Now, had it been where it was Johnny Isaac's term was up, like Purdue's term is up. That's why he's running for re-election in that the seat for 6 years. So had it been that same scenario, I would not have been able to run as an independent unless I had a certain percentage of signatures from the previous election. So that meant I would have to work extra hard to go out and convince people to sign a petition. And you think about, you know, all these different things with identity theft and all of that, how much harder that was going to be to impose onto someone that wants to run not according to the two-party system. So it is very unfair to those who don't want to have to be made to have to choose between the two parties. Give everybody a choice and let them decide on investigating those candidates that are running, and not saying because I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, I'm a vote just Democrat or I'm just vote Republican. So a lot of my time has been spent educating the general population of general voters about me running as an independent, why I'm running as an independent, and why I'm asking for their vote as an independent, even though they might traditionally vote Republican or they might traditionally vote Democrat. I always say take that letter at the end off, look at the candidates and see who you believe is going to have your best interests at heart. It's not going to be 100% fit. No, nobody's 100% fit because we're all different.
Right.
But look at what's the majority of that person's point of view and what they believe in and what they're going to fight for. How does that align up to what you believe and what you want them to fight for?
Okay. Now, what efforts has your campaign made to encourage voting for independent candidates?
Well, being on shows just like this, here with you, with WCEG and other radio shows, TV ads, radio ads, whatever I am, whenever I'm talking to people in person, when I meet them, I'm talking about why I'm running as an independent and what does that mean? Because many people don't understand what that means because they only hear the two-party system.
Right. And I would think that would put you at a great disadvantage, being that, like you said, people generally tend to only focus on the one or the two parties. Mm-hmm. So do you think that puts you at a disadvantage? And if it does, how can you overcome that disadvantage?
Yes, it's definitely a disadvantage because we talked about earlier was the two-party system. And so how you overcome it is people using their word of mouth. Those that have watched my work over the 8 years know what I stood for. Those who've known me, seeing my business experience and community advocacy for those other 30-something plus years, being able to talk to their friends, their family members, and everyone else about my candidacy and saying, hey, take the party off of it, vote for Valencia Stovall, because we know that she's going to do the best. She's already proven herself for 8 years in the state of Georgia, and thinking about for all Georgians, not because you're a particular color, not because you're a particular part of a particular party. It does not matter because I have to represent all of Georgia, just like I did even as a state representative, thinking about the issues that affects everyone. So that's my message to those who are listening as to why they should vote for an independent. And I know it's out of the norm, but we're not living in a normal time now. COVID-19 has shaken up everything. And so I want someone that is going to be looking at the issues and thinking about the people at all times. And that's what I plan on continuing to do as I've done for the past years. Okay.
And how can one vote independent when the Democrat or the Republican ballots are so prevalent?
Like, so this is a general election. There's no party. You would not have to pull a party ballot like you did during the primary. So in the primary, you would ask, do you want a nonpartisan ballot, a Democratic ballot, a Republican ballot? This is general election. So there's no ballot they're going to ask you for. You just going to be handed a ballot and you look for the candidate that you want to vote for. So when you get that ballot, you look for the second part of the U.S. Senate. You have 2 U.S. senators that seats that you're going to be voted for. You go to the second U.S. Senate seat and look for Stovall. That's all, and that's what you mark. Don't look at the party or anything. You just say I'm voting for Stovall because I know she's the best person for that race. And there are 20 other people that's in this race. So it is a large race. It's called a jungle or jumbo race because it's a special election. That means everybody could qualify for this to run in this race. It didn't matter about your party. That's why you're going to see so many people on this particular ballot.
It's called the what race?
It's a jungle race. That means
Jungle race.
in it. Right.
Okay. And does a lot of candidates for U.S. Senate, does it take away from the votes?
Yes, it does. And that's why we are pushing every day out here, spreading our message about Valencia Stovall as U.S. Senate candidate and the historical aspect behind it, and knowing it's someone that you can trust is going to do what she says she's going to do. Because I've done it for 8 years plus, as far as being true to my word and being responsive to the community when those issues arise up. And so, yes, they do take away, but whoever's able to get the 50% plus one will be the outright winner. And it doesn't have to go into a runoff. If the people decide who they want to vote and they actually come out and vote, and I must emphasize, do not wait till November the 3rd. Vote early. Early voting will begin October the 12th. So October the 12th, you can begin to start going to early voting at the different locations of precincts. Check with your county election board. Make sure that you are in the system. So you go to the Secretary of State's office and check to make sure you're still registered. So many names were purged or taken out of the voters list. So you don't want to go to the election on election day and find out that your name is not on the list. You can ask for a provisional ballot, but you want to make sure that your vote counts, because what happens with the provisional, you have to bring back proof that you are who you are. You have to take it back to the elections office to do that, and you don't want to have to go through all of that. So vote early, check your status to make sure that you are on the voter roll.
So one of your reasons for saying to vote early, and you're saying it starts October the 12th, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You're saying one of the reasons is that, say for instance, you go on November 3rd and now your name can't be found on the roll, and now you can't vote, correct? So
well,
if
you can still
look
vote.
into
Everyone is allowed the right to vote.
Okay.
Even if your name is not on there, and even if they say, if you go to the precinct and they say, well, we can't find your name on here, you always ask for a provisional ballot. And what that does, it allows you to still cast your ballot. It might not count depending on if you're registered in the system. So that's why I said, because what they have to do is send you a notice, and they mean the election board for that county will send you a notice and say that you voted provisional. We need for you to prove or bring back in whatever the documents they need for you to bring back in, which is a lot, to have to do to go back to their elections office, for you to vote. So if you vote early, then early on if there's an issue with your vote, then you're able to straighten it out then.
Okay. This is going by really fast today. I know one of your primary policies and platforms you're running on is education, correct?
Correct.
So what are some of the other policies and platforms that you will be running on?
Right. So economic opportunity is one of them. And of course, that falls education because it directly affects economics. The other one is supporting our small business growth. Small business in the United States, particularly here, even in Georgia, make up about 60% of the employers across our state. And when the COVID-19 hit, there were a lot of issues and challenges to our small businesses. Some of them had to close down. Some of them may not even reopen back up. And so being able to support those small businesses, which are our foundation in our communities, to making sure that we are growing economically is definitely at the top of my list. Looking at reclassifying what we say small businesses are, because you have many micro small businesses with fewer than 100 or fewer employees that when the money SBA grants came down, many of them were not able to participate because the larger small businesses of the larger number of employees had the resources to be able to go ahead and apply and receive the grant or the loan for that. But the ones that were affected the most were our micro small businesses in our community. The other one is government efficiency. It's very important that we ensure that we have a well-run government that is fiscally sound. That means there's a good flow through from the federal down to the state and even down to our local jurisdictions. Lastly is global stewardship. So we need to modernize our global network when it comes to trade programs and sustaining our environmental practices, looking at how we're able to sustain them. Now, of course, healthcare is always a major issue. It's not one that you can just single out on its own, because it's all of those things that I talked about. If you don't have a healthy community, you don't have healthy workers. Healthy workers can't go to work. You don't have a thriving economy. If students and children are not healthy, they can't go to school, which means they're not going to have a foundation in education. Also, our infrastructure, we have many issues with broadband services, and even with making sure that our roads improve like they should be to able to maintain the amount of travel that that's taking place across the state. So those are some other key areas. Immigration is another key area that we have to make sure that we're focusing on that kind of falls up under that global stewardship. And and like I said, justice reforms, there's so many others that fall that you don't kind of identify as being separate, because all of them fall up under those three categories that you have to make sure that we're strengthening and making sure that we're focusing on.
Okay. This is one question I definitely wanted to ask you, because I know I'm not the most political savvy person that there is. And here at Conversations in Education on WCEG Talk Radio, we like to educate and inform our listeners and our viewers. So can you please explain to us the difference between the House and the Senate?
Yes. So the House and the Senate is mimicked just like it is on the state level, where you have the legislative arm, which is the House and the Senate. So on the House area, they're the ones that were introduced when it comes down to budgets and everything. They're introduced over on the House side. And so even when we talked about the CARES Act, the HEROES Act, that's why you heard the conversation starting on the House and then it goes to the Senate. The area that I'm running for as was with the Senate is a very important role. There are only 100 senators in the whole United States. There are two represent each state. So I would, when winning, I would be one of the two that represent the whole entire state of Georgia. It's a statewide race. It's not a specific district. So anyone that lives in the state of Georgia can vote in this election. So when you think about the Senate, some most recent things that happen when it comes down to the appointment of by the executive member or by the president, those positions like judges, those other administrative positions, they have to be confirmed by the approved and confirmed by the Senate.
Okay.
So you look at that magnitude of that, the Supreme Court justices that are lifetime appointments. When those times comes up for them to be appointed, they come to the Senate for us to be able to approve those recommendations. When it comes to impeachment process, so we're the judge and the jury when it comes to impeachment process. So you saw what happened earlier last year and then leading into January when the House went through, they impeached the president, but it had to come to the Senate for a trial. And so that's the other important role when it comes down to the Senate. Filibustering, which means they're taking a long time to hear a bill. That's kind of the short version of it. To do that in the Senate. And somebody had asked at another interview is there an advantage to filibustering and disadvantage? I said, if there's a bill that really needs to pass, then filibustering is good, because you have time to be able to go around and kind of talk to the other colleagues to get them to change their vote in favor of the bill if they've been against the bill. And so it allows for a lot of extra time on the debate floor for that to be able to happen. So it's a very important role when you look at it from as well as with the senator, and also being able to decide when there are treaties that are made, they also come to the Senate as well about that.
Okay. Now, before, when you were mentioning your policies and platforms that you're going to be running on, you mentioned government efficiency. Do you think we currently have an efficient government? I'm trying to
No, we
put you
don't.
in no pickle or nothing. You know, I know politics is real touchy, and people try to, watch their words and don't want to step on nobody's toes. But your answer was no.
No, no, we do not. And because we do not have an efficient government, you can see what's going on now with unemployment claims. You can see what's going on with evictions. Why is it that a moratorium had to be placed a week ago when you already knew that the evictions were going to happen?
Right.
People are waiting for the unemployment claim money to come. They're waiting for the House and the Senate to agree on the next drawdown of federal funds that could help mitigate some of these issues that regular people are facing. So in those instances, those are is prime examples as to why we don't have a efficient government. And when money comes down to the state, when the federal sends it down to the state, and then there's a debate as to states don't need more money because if they are certain part of a certain party, no, we don't need to give them as much money. But those are people that live there in that state.
Right.
Promises that have been made. And so when it gets to the state responsibility to make sure it gets down to the local government, because the local government are what affects us immediately. What happens in Washington, D.C. is not an immediate effect. It's, kind of a long-term effect. But what happens locally affects immediately. And when those resources don't come down, the burden for like those evictions, those burdens for unemployment, those services that people need, food, all of that is impacted on the local jurisdiction because that's where the people see and who they're going to for help. But that have to come from the federal government down to making sure that it's flowing like it's supposed to.
Okay, and so if you were involved in those talks and those discussions about the stimulus packages and all of that stuff, what do you think would be fair for the people, being that you are the people's senator?
Right. I think that looking at our nonprofits, the tremendous work that they have done over the years, especially during COVID-19, is making sure that those resources get down to them. When you want to look at how do you get the needs and resources down to the people on the ground, that's where many of our nonprofits are, because they're the ones that are already servicing them. So making that process a lot easier for them when it comes down to the businesses, I would have suggested that we use the small business development centers a lot sooner than what we did here. And the small development centers are located on all of our four-year universities, and they're funded through the SBA. So it wasn't a hard push like they had to talk to the state, and then the state had to authorize the SBDCs. The SBA already had the SBDCs under their organization. So those small business development centers are set up to support small businesses. So when COVID-19 first hit, though they should have been the first front line to be able to work with the chambers, and then those companies that are not a part of the chamber, they still could work with small business development centers to identify what those immediate needs are for those businesses. Many of our micro small businesses end up having to open up with CDC guidelines. They didn't have funding to be able to provide personal protection equipment, like the gas, the cleaning supplies. And remember, they had been out of service and didn't have any income coming in during those times. And when you look at small businesses, the owners have their own. You have two parts. You have the employees who are getting paid, and then the owners of those small businesses are getting paid. So their income was affected as well because that's their business. So you not only had the community people that were working, not being able to work, but then you had those small business owners that had to end up making some very tough decisions to be able to take care of themselves.
Okay. I want to ask you a question about the current election, and it's going to tie into you representing an independent party. I'm one of these people, but there are a lot of people that don't like the two-party system. There are a lot of people that think the two main primary candidates that we have right now representing the two parties are not the best candidates. And so for me, last week I posted on my Facebook page a meme about forget both of them. but it was another F word instead of forget. And there were some people that took issue with that. Some people thought I was saying don't vote. Some people thought I was pushing the vote for an independent third party candidate, which I was not doing. But there were a lot of people that just had an issue with the fact that this two-party system is a problem for me. So I guess my question is, there are a lot of people out there that are sick of the two-party system. There are a lot of people that believe the two-party system is the way to go. How do we get a balance between that? Because I made a statement, that simple statement that I made, I caught so much blowback because people were saying, oh, I got mainly Democrats on my timeline, but the Democrats were saying, you're encouraging people to vote for a third party candidate, which is going to split the votes between Trump and Biden. And splitting the votes is somehow going to ensure that Trump is going to win again. And I don't know if you noticed the theme with a lot of Democrats is just get Trump out by any means necessary. And a lot of people have told me, just vote for the lesser of two evils, which doesn't make sense to me because you're still voting for evil if you're voting for the lesser of two evils. So my thing is independent third-party candidates. A lot of people seem to think that is going to split the vote and going to guarantee Donald Trump another win. What do you think about that?
I think that you start talking about splitting votes. I think that to a certain extent is not fair to allow. It's not fair in saying that because it's selfish. Because it should be people vote for who they think the best candidate is. Like I said earlier, you're not going to agree 100% with any candidate. If someone said they're able to agree 100% with a candidate, then I'm saying, woo, there must be something about that candidate. I don't expect people to believe, agree with me 100% of the time because we're all individuals and we're humans and we have had different experiences about that. And so I think that saying vote for the lesser of the two evil or saying you're going to get more votes for Trump to stay in. No, if everybody vote their conscience of who they think is the best candidate, irregardless of what that letter is at the end of their name, then we're going to have whoever the people say that they want. We live in America. Our system is set up that the majority of the people decide who they want to vote, except for, of course, with the Electoral College, and it's a whole nother conversation there. But in general, like in the election, the race that I'm in, the majority is going to decide who they want to represent them. Irregardless of whether it's a Democrat, Republican, or Independent, you vote for who you think is best. And I commend you for putting that on there because it's a bold move. And believe it or not, there are about a million people that declare themselves independents here in Georgia. Many people don't.
Really?
Yes. I've met several people along the line, ranging in age. I met a 80-year-old woman recently, and I told her I was running as independent. I'm thinking in my head, she might be a Democrat, strong Democrat voter.
Right.
Oh, she said, I look at who the candidate is, and that's who I'm going to vote for. Because sometimes I vote Republican, sometimes I vote Democrat. She said it depends on, or independent. I'm looking at the candidate. And that's what I would like to emphasize to everyone. Look at the candidate and take that party system mentality out of your head. If you think about the DNC, when they had their national convention, they wasn't stressing of voting Democrat. What they stressed was when they brought those Republicans that came on, that were visiting on the DNC national convention. They said they were going to vote for Joe Biden, not because he was a Democrat. They never said that. They said we'll vote for Joe Biden because we know who he is and we think that he's going to be the best candidate. Yes,
right.
Go back and look at all the recordings, and I watched it carefully. They didn't say I'm voting for him because he's a Democrat. They said I've always voted Republican, but it's a character thing now. It's who you think is going to be best. So if they could get Republicans on there to say that, same thing when it came to the Republican convention, they had a few Democrats that said they used to vote Democrat, that they were going to vote Republican. So
Right.
you got a crossover. So I don't understand why is it such a big deal that you got to vote a certain party
Right.
for
I
the
don't.
person that you think is going to be best. And if we, as voters here in Georgia, as voters in America, vote for who we think that is the best person to represent our interests, regardless of party, then we'll have a fair representation. Everybody will have a chance to decide on who they want to be able to represent them.
That's why I like you, Representative Stovall. You are a senator for the people. Senator for the people. We claim
Thank
that.
you.
But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I've never been one to force my views on anyone, whether it's political or anything else. And I firmly believe you can't make a grown person do something they don't want to do. But I know I've had my one or two Trump supporter friends. I've had them tell me, you know, voting against Trump is voting against the best interests of the country, which made no sense to me. I've had Democratic friends tell me that if I vote for an independent, then it's really a vote for Trump, which makes no sense to me at all, because it's actually a vote for who I mark my answer next to. So trying to manipulate me and make me feel bad about the choice that I'm making is never going to work for me. I've been called out of my name by Democrats who said that if you don't vote for Biden, you're stupid, or, you know, we got a black woman running as the VP, and what are you, against black people? You don't want a black woman to come up and be the vice president? Like all of this stuff that people say to try to manipulate your vote is crazy to me. And just the fact that I said I'm going to look into third party candidates, independent candidates, and make my choice, because the two that are there, neither one of them are for me. Okay. And that was just looked at with so much scrutiny and overanalyzed. And I have to give a shout out to my man, Evan Toulon. He's the only person probably in the last two elections that we've had that has had a very rational and respectful conversation with me about politics. And so I have to give a salute to him, because, and that's one of the things I don't like about politics. It gets so ugly. And if you don't vote for my person, or if you do this, or if you do that, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, and you're everything but a child of God. And that's the kind of energy and mentality that politics brings out. And I don't think it's necessary. And I think it's really harmful to the country as a whole, because if you don't do my way, then you're wrong. And then that causes conflict and all type of other stuff. So I just think there has to be something better that we can come up with than just these two main party systems. And people, vote your heart, vote for what you feel is right. I would never tell anyone who to vote for, ever. And so people who do that, I just really don't understand. But Representative Stovall, I really appreciate you coming in today. We're already at 3:01. This hour flew by very quickly. I'm very impressed with you. I'm very impressed with a lot of the answers that you gave. And I will say this: I treat politicians like the United States criminal justice system treats Black people, guilty until proven innocent. Okay. And you are one of the few politicians who I have spoken to who has shown me you are for the people. I always see you out in the community doing work, whether it's at a Black community event, Hispanic community event, or a white community event. I always see you out. And that to me speaks volumes, okay? And I'm just saying what I know. I'm not even talking about you politically. I'm talking about you personally right now, okay? Because I don't step into politics like that. But I know what kind of person you are because I have seen for myself. And I hope other people get to see you for you, and I hope they make the right choice in voting for the U.S. Senate come November 3rd. I want to wish you the best of luck. Right now, you are my senator, okay?
Thank you.
I don't care what anybody else says. I want to give you a time for any closing remarks you'd like to make, speaking to the people and the listeners at WCEGTalkRadio.com.
Thank you. So definitely, I need your support. I need your vote on November the 3rd or before November the 3rd. As a U.S. Senator, my years of track record that you can look at, you know, many times people say, I want to look at your behavior, what you've done before. because more than likely what you've done before is what you're going to continue to do. And so I've done it before as well as being a champion for all people. In this case, I want to be it for all Georgians. But I can't make it there without your vote. And so I need your vote. I need you to tell your friends, your neighbors, your family members about Stovall. Go to my website, gostovall.com. I'm on Facebook, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Valencia Stovall. Every Friday, I host a Talking Stovall Live. This Friday, we'll be talking about evictions. We'll talk about credit. We'll also be talking about employment. So, you know, if you get evicted or you get support with rental assistance, guess what? You're still gonna have to pay that bill the next month after that. So you're gonna need, I work for solutions. That's one of the things I've been known for as a state representative, is finding solutions. And so this Friday, when we're gonna talk about employment options that are out there to be able to help you transition through this time of COVID. So just remember, when you go to the polls, vote Stovall, that's all. That's all you need to remember is Stovall, that's all. Thank you so very much, Vincent, to WCEG, my other family, for allowing me this opportunity to get the word out. And remember, if you don't vote, then you can't elect the next U.S. Senator to be able to represent Georgia, being the first Black female to be able to go to Georgia and represent us for all of Georgia. This will be the first time in history. So help me to make history for our state. Thank you.
Stovall, that's all. I absolutely love it. We couldn't do it for what's her name? Stacey Abrams. We're gonna get you in there, Representative Stovall.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today. You've listened to WCEG talkradio.com. This is Conversations in Education, and I am your host, Vincent Cheeks. And I almost forgot to do my Scholar of the Week. I'm sorry. Scholar of the Week goes to a sixth grader named Makai Samuels Page. He has created an anti-bullying backpack to record bullies in the act. He says, I'm not one of the tallest sixth graders. He said, I'm one of the shorter ones. So when I get picked on, it makes me feel like I'm nothing. And I want to change that, he said. He's been pushed and called names, so he focused his inventing power to stop that from happening again. It's been hurting, said Samuels Page of the bullying. That's why I created this. He fought back with brain power, creating the anti-bully backpack. The backpack has 2 cameras, Wi-Fi, GPS, and a walkie-talkie system that alerts parents when a recording starts. With the bully backpack, don't fight back. You got your proof right here, said the student. Makai just got a patent for the design he hopes to be able to produce soon. He said he is currently looking for investors to help him out. Technology is doing all of this stuff. It's driving cars, flying airplanes. So why can't we use it to solve social problems, said Samuel Page. His parents say they're thankful their son is harnessing his hurt to help himself and others. So big shout out to Kai Samuel Page for inventing the anti-bullying backpack. We need more innovative thought just like that to help solve these social issues. Again, I want to say thank you to my guest, Representative Valencia Stovall, who is running for U.S. Senate on November 3rd. Stovall, that's all. Go to her website, which is gostovall.com. Get in the back. Yes, thank you very much. Blessings and best of luck to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a blessed day.
All right.